got
I want to see. Can we share the link to Facebook? How did that work?
yeah, I could, but I didn't. I think we live though. We all the way live.
We all the way live. Why am I? Why am I delayed? Mm,
Okay, I got it posted up. We in the building. We in the building. Once again, the dynamic duo is back in the building, and we building. You know,
Peace and love, everybody.
peace and love, peace,
It's your
peace.
boy King L Bay.
It's King L Bay, Bandele, Ill in the building. Once again, it's been a little bit. It's been a little bit of time, but we back in effect. Uh, ready to drop some jewels on everybody tonight, as always. So I hope y'all enjoy. Let me get myself situated. All right, there we go. There we go. Got myself situated. See a couple people in the building. Uh, yeah, so we're gonna try to get it in tonight. Tonight, as you can tell, what we're gonna talk about is we're gonna be talking about due process, treaty, operation of law, and the application and jurisdiction. Um, so I know that's a lot of words, but what we're gonna do is break that down for you tonight. Brother King L Bay basically is gonna give his spiel on that information. So so before all that, please y'all check this out. Check the link. Please thumbs up, like the video, please subscribe, all that. And I wanted to introduce tonight. My book is finally published. I have a new book out, y'all. So I wanted y'all to check it out. It's called Navigating Melanated Love and Relationships in the Modern Era. Okay. And this book is dealing with the wisdom and the thoughts based on our greatest minds. So what I have is we're going to deal with how relationships are built based on the great minds of like you got uh, Francis Quest Welsing. We got Malcolm X. We're going to use Farrakhan. We're going to use Kevin Samuels. We got Steve Harvey. We got like all those names and those people who have ideas and have put out their information as for relationships. We're gonna have all that in this book dealing with the modern time. So y'all check that book out, please. And also check out any other books. I'm gonna put those up there too. I know you got some. I know you got your book too, King. I'm gonna put yours up there real quick. We got the book on child support. Hold up. Why did it come up like that? Is your name all together? Is it all in one? There we go. So we got also King L Bay's book, The Must Blueprint for Redemption. That's one of his books. Where's your book for child support? Is it still up? You there? Yo,
yeah,
King.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I had you on mute.
Okay. I was trying to put your book up on child support, but I can't put it.
I don't know. They probably striking my stuff. This
Nah, man.
basic.
Hold on. It should pop up, man. I don't see why. I know I didn't. We didn't have it up.
Several times. Put
Yes.
stop child support.
Oh, I know what it is. My fault. That's what it was. I put it. I put it. You know how? Listen. Okay, there we go. So we got right here. You got the Morris Blueprint to Redemption Theories, Doctrine of Lost Sovereignty. Okay, so that's one of his books. Then you got his main book is How to Say. So check out King L's Bay's books on Amazon, and also check out all my books on Amazon. Especially like I said, that first book, my newest my latest book dealing with relationships. So, with that being said, we about to get into this, man. I'm gonna put this back up real quick. Just all right. So, all right, brother. Let's get back into this, man. So, I'm gonna let you hold the floor tonight for the most part. So, you can go ahead and dive in.
Okay. Tonight we're going to talk about due process on an international scale, dealing with these relationships between nation states. So, treaties is what nations use, right? And when you create a treaty and you confer, that's how rights are conferred. So, anything in the treaty, you can dealing with land, it could be dealing with navigation of the waters, it could be dealing with resources, it can be dealing with landlord tenant rights, it can be dealing in a varieties of different things. And your treaty is the contract, and the name of the treaty in which is the application and the provision in which you are saying that there's violation or there is a conflict between the two parties, they have to identify the code or the language in the treaty in which there is a controversy. Okay, so as time went on, they created a charter, the UN Charter, which is another franchise. It's a franchise, and all of the different nations that wanted to be a part joined the franchise, and it gave these nations the right to contract and bring it to the International Court of Justice. So it's the same thing like a McDonald's. McDonald's have a bunch of private owners under the franchise, but they're under the franchise banner of McDonald's. And McDonald's has its own set of corporate rules, franchise rules. Then you might have a contract, right, with 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 the McDonald's, and they give you a contract. The contract that you have with McDonald's may not specify certain things in the charter or under that franchise, but because it's deposited and associated with that franchise, those charter rules are also applicable to the contract itself. So it's the same process when you're talking about the UN and the United Nations, right? Along with the different countries, they're private the under this charter, but they also have the right to do treaties. And now you talk about bilateral treaties, then you got multilateral treaties where more than one nation sign on as a signatory to a particular treaty, and they might have a convention on that. They might, before they develop it, you're going to have your international minutes where they discuss it. Just like when you do a trust, then you're going to build the minutes up. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be evidence, and then you're going to build on the treaty. And then all the nations they want to be a part of such treaty, right? They sign off. So you have to understand how the operation of law works. So let's say two countries want to get into a contract, and they contract. Do the charter, UN charter, still apply? Yes, because they're under the franchise, even though they're doing private dealings, right, between the two nations, the UN Charter can still come into play in the contract unless they exclusively say we don't want to add the charter, but the charter may have a provision that is prohibited from ever utilizing or not utilizing these charter when you contract with other treaties. As you look at the charter, you must go through with a fine-tooth comb and look at all the verbiage in it to determine what you can do with other nations when you start to negotiate treaties or contracts. To determine if the application of the charter is also associated with the private contract or the treaty. Okay,
All right. All right.
so um, we have to understand how the operation of law work because this will start to descend down into domestic policy regarding of whatever particular thing that they're treaty or contracting about, right?
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this. So you're saying that international law or treaties basically trickle down into domestic law. Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay.
it
Gotcha.
it,
Go ahead.
it can, and so you will have a nation that has its own constitution and its own laws that is based on its association with its citizens or members, right, or its state, and they have their own particular rules and regulations. But then it might say, let's say a country share a river, right? One side of the country, I mean, one on the other side of the country, there's a river that passed through two countries, and they utilize this water. And let's say one country is has a little more economic influence, and they're dumping um,
Right.
material waste into the water. Right
Right.
now, that country share that same water. It's a part of their own water system. So now they can say, "Hey, we got a treaty, a contract that said we won't do certain things." Right. And now you can look at that, even though that's not associated with anything in particular with the charter, but the charter can still influence the contract and what also can be applied in a complaint based upon the charter rules and the contract. So they can say, based on what we under this jurisdiction of this charter, that they in violation of section of the charter, but they also in violation of section 7, 8, 9, 10 of the contract of the treaty. So they're in
Okay.
violation of the charter and they're in violation of the treaty.
So so you're saying that if they got a problem with the more influential country dumping toxic stuff into the water, they can go to the UN or the chart, like they can go to them for the dispute.
Right. They go to
Okay.
the International Court of Justice, right?
Okay.
So they under their charter they have a venue in which they can handle their dispute or controversies. And then the decision will be binding on the two parties. That's it's just like case law, right? So now they will have case law associated with the international jurisdiction, right? Formulating what they have to do based on the opinion of the ICJ, International Court. So now both parties can say, okay, you in violation. I want these sanctions to be enforced by the ICJ, and these sanctions can be enforced. And then you have case law that also support the finding on when this controversy arise again, right? Because now it's a principle of law and now it could be applied. Now we could go through and see if it happens 15, 20 years later. You see what I'm saying? And you have new successors run a government. You already have some settled principles that they can look to and reference, saying, okay, this is how we're going to deal with this based on this past event. And here's some instructions on what they did, right?
All right. Right. Okay.
So,
So
okay.
no, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
So I'm just giving people the understanding when we talk about what's due and when you understand due process means something is due, something is owed. And then the process is how you go about doing whatever you're doing according to the instructions. So I want to show with the defined due process so people can see what due process is if I'm allowed to share the screen.
Yeah, I don't see anything up here yet. Go ahead and put it.
Okay, so let's go over the word due. Okay,
Here we go.
and let's look at what due mean as it relates to um, due process on it. What is due? What the word due? If we look at that, due means just, proper, regular, lawful, sufficient, remaining unpaid, reasonable, as in the phrase due care, due process of law, and due notice. Owing, see, owing, payable, justly owed, that which contract to pay or perform another, that which law or justice required to be paid or done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Owed or owing a distinguished from payable. So when something is due is owed or owing. So when we talk about due process, right, we got to understand. And you can also confer and look at due process as a under the United States Constitution as a Bill of Rights also.
Okay.
You
A
see
Bill
what
of Rights, right? I mean,
right.
Bill of Rights is a term used for the
The
10, the
the first
10 first 10 the first 10 amendments,
right.
right?
So
Okay.
so that means somebody has been billed. It's a debt owed, right,
Mm-hmm.
based on this. So they cannot, the first 10 amendments, it's a bill of rights that's put on the governments, and the governments owe the bill, and they cannot disturb it. So this is where you got to understand due processes relates to constitutional things, but once you understand what due process is, you can now shape it and understand how to take it from the international to the national stage or the domestic stage. And now you can correlate the two and be able to know what to look for dealing with questions of law.
Check, check. So, how does this relate to the Moors and how the Moors and the movement that has been being out here? How does that relate to what we are trying to do? Like, how is the international due process and domestic? How does it relate for Moors?
Okay, so we got to look at the treaties. These treaties are, Moors have written a lot of treaties, and we have to understand our relationship that's conferred in the treaty based on our rights. So, in a lot of contracts, you will have a grantor and a grantee. In some relationships, I'm on a podcast, Riri. No. So we got to understand what due process is, right? So when you look at what Moors are up to and when dealing with due process of law, we wrote a lot of treaties. So we got a lot of contracts on the table. And when you understand a lot of these contracts, some of them was done in commerce, some of them was done with land rights as the landlord. So we have to look at these contracts and determine what is owed to us, right, on an international scale between us and other United States, and we and look at if how they're trying to subjugate us or misclassify us in a way to not have us connected to those treaties, because you have to be identified as in the treaty to determine if whatever your status is related to the treaty rights. So we must understand these treaties to determine what rights and power that we have. Then we got to look at if they ratify these into domestic policies in the
Mhm.
arm reach of citizens of the state. So if it was ratified into a law to a statute, now that is reachable to, if you're a U.S. citizen, to be able to use such treaty under a statutory authority. Now it has the force not only in the international realm but also in the domestic realm.
Okay. Okay. So, my first thing is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Is that an applicable treaty, for us to use?
Yeah, that's a treaty that we can also use in relationship because that treaty has also been ratified under the statutes of law as statutes of law at large. So now we got to look at that treaty because now it's under the statutes of laws. It might not be codified, but it might be under the statutes of laws in which it's still in been ratified under the jurisdiction, but it's not been placed into statutory authority. So we got to look at this and determine if this statutes of law has been codified into the Treaty of Peace and Friendship has been codified or not, or if parts of the treaty been codified. So it's about being able to examine these contracts, put everything in proper context, and look at everything to determine what is our reach within the jurisdiction. Is there violating their own constitutional provisions? Is there a conflict in law on an international scale, right? So we got to determine everything how we look at these contracts and determine what jurisdiction that can we go into. If the treaty say that you can go into that particular jurisdiction, you can enforce it. And it may not where they can't bring such action. It must stay in a particular venue in order to enforce such action. So you must look at the contract. And what I'm having problems with us, we're not reading, and then we don't read with clear vision or clear voice because we don't understand how to apply the contract and how the operation of law work under that application of that treaty and where to enforce it.
Okay. So give us an example, because I mean that's a lot to take in. So how, to make it, to simplify it so we can understand it. Give us an example. Like if we're using the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, how would you apply it?
Um, First, you got to read it and look at in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It talks about a consular jurisdiction. That is the venue in which you can enforce it. It's not enforceable in a United States jurisdiction. So you got to understand where you can enforce it at. So if you don't have a counselor provision or a counselor court, where to establish for enforcement recognized by the United States and having it done so properly to properly enforce such contracts where you can then move on such action. Now, you got to remember some of these treaties was written before the UN even existed.
Right.
So, resurrecting the Empire of Morocco as it relates to the United States, over here, we must determine, do we resurrect her and make her a member or a state of such charter to not only be able to have a venue that will support us and enforce these treaty rights. So we got to look at everything. Or could we do this even recognizable? Could we go to one of the member states in the nation states, right? And see if we can get them to acquiesce and witness, right, off on the violations and submit it and have it enforceable. Because I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, a lot of moving parts are missing. So one of the things that I'm seeing we having trouble with that application under that treaty is that the venue is not being recognizable, in which not have the force of law in which we want to have. So that's one of the problems that we're having, um, that we don't have the proper venue. But we also got to look at these treaties and determine, is there other venues or other things that we can look at and determine our relationship, because we wrote several treaties. And we got to understand how this stuff works to determine how to go about doing things based on the operation and the application of law, looking at the source of law.
I got you. Okay. Okay. So, if y'all got any questions, please put some of the questions in the comment section. Like I
So,
said, please like and share this video, and also please subscribe. So go ahead, brother.
so I want to get back into what is process. I want to see, is that showing up? Could you share the screen? The process, is it showing? Is you there, brother?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can they see? Okay.
Yeah,
Says
you're up.
process. Okay. So it says process, a series of actions, motions, or occurrences, progressive acts or transacts, continuous operation, methods, modes, or operation whereby a result or effect is produced, normally or actual course of procedure, regular proceedings as the process of vegetation or decomposition, a chemical process, a process of nature. So we got to understand what is the process and what is due process requiring. So it's something that's due, right? There's something that's owed, and we must follow the process based on the contract. So when you think about due process, you must think about that as a right. That is a right of action to take, dealing with claims and counterclaims, and who is the obligor and obligee, or based on if you the realtor or realty, whatever the thing may be, you're going to identify the titles associated with that within the contract to determine what actions you can take based on the contract. So one of the principles that I'm seeing that's getting lost, we don't understand due process. So we don't know what's going on, so we don't know how to confer our rights.
Okay. Well, see, from my understanding, also due process is, like you said, it's a process. It's a procedure. It could be procedural or what
Substantive.
substantive. So how does that play into this?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the contract and we're going to talk about the charter. The charter is the procedure, the contract is the substantive component, because it's dealing with the rights of the contract that's conferred by the two parties. So when you think about procedure, you think about the charter, the rules of civil procedure, all the rules that need to be followed. But then you have the contract itself. That is the substantive rights that's conferred, and nobody can subjugate your rights under the contract. So me and you got a contract. You can't misclassify me or deny me rights within a contract we both agreed upon once we had a meeting of the minds and we both got what we wanted.
Okay. So you said that was substantial.
So when you say substantive, I want you to think about contract. And when you say procedure, I want you to think about the charter. So let's say once again, if I was McDonald's, the procedures would be the McDonald's franchise, right? Rules, right? Then the contract itself will be the substantive language. So when I think about contracts, I say substantive. When I think about the procedures, I think about the rules.
Check.
right, of that agreement, right, of that charter or that franchise, right?
Got you. I got you.
Do that make sense?
I believe so. I mean, in my opinion, yeah, I got you. So when we're talking about the due process and procedural and substantive, uh, dealing with the treaties. Um, so I mean, like, just kind of go more into that as far as like how we're to argue that in court.
So you got to remember some of these contracts or these treaties were written before the charter even existed. So there is no franchise component. It's just a contract.
Okay. So
So
like a treaty, a piece of friendship. This
right,
a contract. Okay.
it's just a contract. So there's no franchise application that you can use in such agreement. It's just
Okay.
now the two countries can just try to find a way to negotiate and enforce that contract. So we have to look at that, right? And then we have to look at, do we have a right to deposit that contract into the ICJ, right? If we become a franchise player in that charter.
Okay. So let me. So you got my mind clicking. So basically, all we can deal with is substantive when we dealing with the treaty, a piece of friendship, right?
Yes.
Okay. So have you seen any Moors or anybody using due process as argument in in a court dealing
No.
with the treaty?
No.
Mm, I haven't either. So so that's something for us to kind of dig into. So go into that because that's interesting.
So we what we got to look at, right? Where is the jurisdiction that needs to be had for this treaty? You can't take it into federal court, right? Um, if it relates to the treaty, a lot of people think about the UCC 9. Hold on one.
Okay, yeah. Hey, he about to get heavy on it.
So in UCC Article 9, it talks about the commercial capacity and it talks about treaties, right, in the UCCs. But you have to look at what is the definition according to the UCC section Article 9. You got to remember each section start off with a set of definitions. So we first got to determine is if we talking about because everybody in the internal revenue they're dealing with tax treaties. No, it's not
Mm,
the same as those treaties dealing with the commerce as it relates to the Moors. So you got a lot of Moors checking off Morocco, and this dealing with tax treaties, dealing with the kingdom of Morocco as it relates to current events. So now it's a misappropriation of law based on a false or fraudulent identity because they talking about the empire in the IRS. They're talking about the kingdom, but we referring to the empire.
so it's two different jurisdictions.
There's two different jurisdictions based upon two different entities. So language is very specific, and we have to be able to identify these things on a substantive and procedural level, right?
Right.
Because now we got to look at who has the rights as the grantor. We have to look at is this treaty a grantor's treaty or a grantor's trust in relationship, or is this a contract or a compact? Those are two different relationships. So you have to be able to specify what's your relationship to be able to pinpoint the elements that you're trying to discern in your questions of law before the court. So, who can entertain these treaty rights right now? The only person I can see institution is the Supreme Court in the Article 3 jurisdiction. Because there is no consular court available. And
Right.
then we must put to the Supreme Court, we must put the question of law based on consular jurisdiction. That must be a question. Do this Supreme Court has consular jurisdictional rights to hear this matter? They got to tell you yes or no. Nobody is doing this
Nope.
because we don't understand how to read into this information. We don't know how to put the question of law in. So the first thing we must do is before we go into, because they're going to let you know if they can entertain it or reject it in proper venue. When you litigate it as much and you understand these applications and you see what I've seen based on the litigation that I have experienced, you'll be able to identify these things and put these in a more accurate position. Without being able to do this, you're going to have a hard time and you're going to be throwing a whole bunch of blank bullets because you're shooting on an empty shell because you don't have the right ammunition because you can't identify what's going on within this due process situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you talking about this due process. Like I said, I have not seen any Moors using due process as an argument in for the treaty. I haven't seen it. So hey, all the Moors out there, that's something that you really need to start considering. Is understanding due process. Due process is not just for domestic problems, you know. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. So you talked about tax treaties.
Right?
So we got tax treaties. Now let's talk about tax treaties and how jurisdiction applies with tax treaties a little bit more.
So we got to look at, for us Moors dealing with the empire and this Sharifian, right, empire within the gambit of that contract. They use a lot of different language, right, in these various treaties. Some of you can see some of the similar language in the treaties, but you got to understand what did they talk about taxation in relationship to the Moors dealing with the empire. So a lot of the countries that came in to this new fold under this UN, what did they do? They changed their name. They gave up their ancient name to do what? Become a part of this charter so they can get funded, right? So now these tax treaties, they signed off as signatories to these tax treaties in which you can see their relationship. You're going to see it in treaty before you see it in the Internal Revenue Code. So now a lot of countries is their signatory to the to a lot of these tax treaties based on the United States coming into the United States.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? We first got to look at the treaty. Then we go to the IRS code to determine, okay, is we following the treaty? Is the United States following the treaty under its ratification under the Internal Revenue Codes that's been adopted by the United States codes? That's how the United States get their jurisdiction of the legislators because the Treasury is under the what? Executive branch.
y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? The treaty. I mean, the You said Treasury is under the executive
executive branch,
branch.
right? So,
Check.
so how did the legislative branch get control? They adopted. So through the mere adoption, bind the two jurisdictions, meaning
Hmm.
what? Article 1 and Article 2 is both operating. This is why you have all crimes are commercial, right? But they can also charge you with a United States code because it originally, under those tax laws, it originally sits within Article 2 gambit of its jurisdiction.
Dang, that's heavy right there. That's
You see
heavy,
what
man.
I'm saying?
I ain't even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna hold you, bro. Yeah.
So a lot we don't understand how these things come in play. Just because these three branches of government have this separation of power doctrines, but they have the right to adopt each other's laws. So the
Okay.
executive branch has its own codes. They're called Code of Federal Regulations, right?
CFR. Yeah.
Then the legislative branch have the United States codes.
Mm.
And then guess who the judicial do? They make all the rules of civil procedure, the rules of criminal procedures, the rules of evidence on a state and federal jurisdiction, the
And we
rules
never we never know what we getting in. We don't never know what they bringing on us. Like they
because you don't know what questions to ask, because you don't know that you don't understand the ensemble of how things are working, because you don't know under a question of law, you're not putting it before the court under a discovery matter.
mm. So if you go if so when you're doing it as a discovery, what are you how are you addressing that?
You want to know under the jurisdiction, it look like I'm freezing. You want to be able to ask them the nature and the cause of action. They have to tell you the nature if it's under amity, maritime, equity, right? And common law. But then they also got to tell you the cause of action based on the two jurisdictions. A lot of times they're charging you with one in the federal court, a United States code, but it's also really a, a internal revenue code at the same time.
Right. You don't even know, right? Like
You
do
won't even
we don't
know
even
because the what happened? They adopted the code. These are tax codes. And you got to look at how these tax codes been adopted into federal legislation on the state and the federal level. You have to look at these.
I got you. I got
So it looked like it's only one jurisdiction being applied, but it's really two.
you. Hey, they sneaky, man. I'm trying to tell you. They sneaky. They be getting it in. Man,
This
it's so much shady stuff that the courts, pull over us every day, and they've been doing it so long that it's so routine that they don't even realize that they doing it. I mean, they like, hey, it's just part of our process. Man,
so we got to look at this, right? So another term that we got to look at when you look at the 14th Amendment, it says the, that no state can deny the privileges and immunities of a U.S. citizen. So, what is the word immunity?
okay.
Another word for immunity is exemption.
Mm,
So, when we're talking about tax laws, they dealing in tax liens, right? A lien ain't nothing but a tax, right?
okay.
Because you're using somebody else's property. So they have the right to put a fee schedule on you using their property. That's why they leaned it.
So immunity is
Exempt.
exemption.
Yeah. Let me pull that up. Let me pull up immunity so people can see this, right? So what are you looking for? Because a lot of the Moors don't know how to move within the jurisdiction. So this is the problem. We got a lot of people teaching things, and you're trying to get exempt from this 14th Amendment status in the IRS. So what are you looking for in relationship to the immunity, right? You're looking for a tax exemption. That's another word. So if you're tax exempt, that means they have no jurisdiction.
Y'all hear that? So so that takes me back to like religious. So you got religious institutions that are tax exempt, but they're under a 501c3 or something. So are they? Is that the way they try to try to still trap you back into jurisdiction by putting you
So
under a 501c3 and still be tax exempt, or are you still tax exempt or and have immunity?
hold on. Let me
Okay,
let me
all
pull
right, all right.
into this immunity so that people can see it and break this down for y'all.
I
As
got you. I got you. I'm about to
Singapore's.
pull it up. There we go. Bow.
You see that word? What's the first word in this definition? It got a comma behind it.
Ah, exactly. Exemption. Exemption, y'all. Y'all see it? Y'all see it? It's written right there. Immunity is exemption. So when we saying tax exempt, we're really saying tax immunity.
Exactly.
All right. All right.
So to kill that 14th Amendment status, you must have a what? Tax exemption. That means you're not taxable. That means they can't bring you under their 14th Amendment status. They have to find another jurisdiction in which they won't have. So if you get a driver's ticket, if you get a ticket on a driver's license and you have a tax exemption status, all you need to do is give them the exemption information and the case should disappear.
Okay. All right. All right. I got you.
You feel me, Chief?
Right.
This,
Hey, I feel you. Hey, and if y'all need help, like we dropping a
this
lot
is
of
what we
jewels.
do. This is what we do. Me
Right.
and Chief, we the dynamic duo. I'm not gonna tell y'all now lie. We the guys. We
Yeah.
the
Who's Batman? Who Robin though? Nah, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with. but but nah, but for for real, y'all get in contact with us, man. Y'all get in contact with us because we dropping these jewels, but you may not know how to put this together. You don't know how to
we
present.
know
You
how
don't know
to
how to present it in the court.
we know how to put it all the way together, all the way around, right? So now a lot of y'all are having problems because you don't know what to look for or what questions of law that you ask. If you want to court and they trying to charge you, what you got to do? You file a stay on the court and say, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all trying to move on this action, and I already gave you my tax exemption information. They have the reporting requirement. Churches don't have to, or temples don't have any reporting requirements to the IRS. Any identity, this is what I want to tell people. The TIN, the social security number, the ITIN, are taxpayer identifications. It's called a TIN, a tax payer
Identification.
identification number. So
Right.
when you go get a social and when you go get an ITIN or go get an EIN, you volunteer to be a taxpayer. That is your true identity. They don't
Mm,
care about anything else because they want to either get your social, your EIN or ITIN because you volunteered to say, I'm going to pay these taxes. While I'm going to have my tax immunity papers saying I don't have no obligations to pay any taxes. You can't lien none of my property, so you don't have jurisdiction.
mm.
I don't have to go about arguing with the court because I got the evidence, the proof
Check,
of the claim.
check.
See, when
Yeah.
you know what's going on and you know how to truly do this, we kill all the presumptions because now we got the facts. We ain't got to go in there and argue with that, all of that. Now we can challenge the jurisdiction. Now, if you want to put a quarento in there, you do it with an affidavit in support with eh, your tax exemption as an exhibit.
Oh,
They don't,
right.
they
I
don't,
got you.
they don't want none of this.
Nah, they don't want the smoke. You
They
feel
don't
me?
want, they
They don't
don't
want.
want this smoke. You know, King L. Bay drop this stuff all day on them. You feel me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talk about this every day, all day. Like this is
That's
what we.
all we do. Me and Chief do this all day. We bounce stuff around. We litigators, family. We're not none of these other Moors that we know what we're doing. I deal with proof of claim. It ain't about what you say. Two things I tell Vanderlei all the time. I say it's about who tell the best story and who got the proof.
Yeah, he do all the time, y'all. He do all the time. And I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna hold you. So, um, all right. So we got all that, man. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, what else is
I think we need to say peel some of this back, let people dive in this information because when we talk about your sovereignty, right, and you talk about sovereign immunity, right, exemption, tax exemption, sovereign immunity, sovereign exemption, right?
right?
We got to understand what's going on, man. We got
Right.
to understand what's going on. We got to understand the play on words in the game that's in front of us. We're playing checkers while they're playing chess.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time to step the game up. All I do is make sense, you know. And me and Chief, we know how to polish this up. I told him this is our year. We put in the work. We put in the everything. We know how to write the contracts. We know how to look at everything from a different point of view that a lot of Moors didn't know what to do.
Facts. So let me ask you this: um, when we use the word exemption, like I've heard a lot of times, with sovereign citizens or whatever, they'll say that exemption is not is what the government allows you to not do. So they're saying like, okay, if you're tax exempt, that's because the IRS has granted you exemption. So it's still coming from the power of the IRS. So I mean, what do you feel about that? I mean, or have you heard that? And how
Well,
do you bring it?
see, this is the thing, right? You have to understand. See, this is I don't want to give up all the game.
Nah, but just get just.
So no, you going to enter to the United States. You got to understand your entity and would you have to use the language necessary to get the tax exemption. It has to be in your institution. You have to know what's technically going on to get the exemption, right? Conferred by treaty. When they wrote the Constitution, they had treaties in mind. They didn't write the Constitution based on somebody's own principle. They had constitutions and they had treaties in mind. That's why treaty is the law of the land. Why is treaty the law of the land? You dealing with landlord-tenant rights, right? Who is going to pay the taxes, right? A landlord charge rent, right? The tenant pay rent to the landlord. So we got to understand the dynamics in these relationships that we're under conferred under treaty, right? So a lot of us don't know what we've been talking about this stuff about the tax exemption being the immunity, having the sovereign immunity, because it's based upon the application that's been ratified into domestic policy. And they're using language from the treaty to write some of these policies, these tax policies.
I mean, you got, like you said, you got tax treaties, right?
Tax treaties.
So, I mean, some of that tax treaty would trickle into domestic law,
Yeah.
right? I got you.
Because a lot of times they will ratify it, right? And bring it into domestic law. So I just want to show the people that when we dealing with these contracts and we understand how this stuff works, and if you understand how to build on this, this is what me and Chief do. A lot of people don't understand. So when we dealing with a lot of the community, right, they don't have the proof of claim. They go in there, I'm a more. What do that mean? What do that mean in relationship to the jurisdiction? Where's your tax exemption? They come in here with UCCs. That's evidence that you're doing commercial.
Okay, so touch on that real quick because everybody is talking about, filing UCC. So that is what we got to do. File UCC, file your UCC, put your UCC lien. So, like, tell me, like, how does that play a part? Real quick, real quick.
So you got to understand the language conferred about secure party. You got a secure lien, you have a secure party, and you have a secure transaction, right? Is it necessary to file a UCC to be a secure party? No. The contract is a security, right? Ain't that why you write a contract? To secure your rights in that instrument.
Okay.
If you look at a lot of banks, they don't even file some UCCs. Why? Because the court is going to enforce the contract anyway.
You said the banks don't file UCCs?
I said a lot of banks, they don't. You might not find a bank filing a UCC, right?
Mm.
Because they got they it's already spelled out in the contract, right? So when we looking at the UCCs, you have to understand the certain things that you have to do. So you can file a non-UCC, right? With your tax exemption, I can't break all of this stuff down, showing evidence of what? That you are immune from their jurisdiction. You don't have to necessarily file a UCC lien because why? You exempt. Now, if you want to lien property, you could file it on entities that you have, but that's evidence that you're doing commercial within the jurisdiction, right?
Check.
So you have to look at everything. What these people are looking at is they're looking at what is the source of law and what are you doing in connection with the jurisdiction. You can't take my property and then tell me I don't have the right to charge you for using it.
Check. Okay.
So one of the things that we're using is their codes, their language, and then they got royalties. They got copyright royalties on that language. And because you don't have, that's why they took away your language so you couldn't codify to have copyright royalties. They gave you a language to speak to confuse you with these commercial language so that you will always be acquiescence to the jurisdiction. So if you don't understand what's going on and you're not a heavy litigator, contact the dynamic duo and we can show you how to break it down.
Check. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh, okay, my brother, man. I think we covered a lot. In this hour. Um, you know, appreciate everybody. Like I said, please like the video and subscribe, and please share this video if you feel like it's been very informative. I do. Um, so I really that's really all I got to say on the matter, man. Any last words, my brother?
Go cop the book on how to stop child support. I'm gonna have more books. Go cop my brother books, Chief Vanderlei. Go to Amazon, cop these books, man. Understand what's going on in the jurisdiction, and I'm a. We got to put some information out there. If you want to contact me, um, you can put my number up there, Chief.
Okay. You put your number. Okay. I'm
They
gonna
can
put it in there, or I'm gonna put it in the. Y'all check for the in the link. I'm gonna put it in the link real quick.
okay,
So you
all
know,
right, right
but
there.
yeah, I'm about to get up out of here, man, and get the rest of this night going. But appreciate you once again, man. Like I said, we're gonna be, man. We hitting it hard for the rest of the year. We going in hard for the rest of the year. Okay, so we putting videos out. We putting videos out almost every day. If
We
not,
going hard.
yeah, we going hard, man. Y'all check out King Bay on Facebook because King Bay, he put a lot of his videos on Facebook. So look up King Bay on Facebook, and I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. So y'all can look up me under Chief Vanderlei. Chief Noble Vanderlei. Okay, so that's what we got for y'all today, man. Appreciate y'all. Peace and love to everybody, and we out.
We out.
All right. Peace.
Peace.